Hi everybody, this is Will NY4. I'm back for the fourth video with my series on building outposts and factories. In my first three videos I described my efforts to find out why it was so hard for people to do this. And in the course of that investigation I found that there was a conspiracy involving the big mining company Cydonia to eliminate competition in the sale of finished products. I also found a group of programmers, excellent, fabulous guys and gals associated with a company called Nexus that provided me the tools so that I could actually accomplish this, which I showed you in my video 3. However, many folks were still writing about the efforts to make Vytinium fuel rods, and that as a good compromise in comparison to trying to create that full factory with all products being sold. So I decided I would investigate it. I'm here outside of Decaron 7B, which is the only place where you can get Vytinium. But before I decided to go ahead with this, I did a little bit of research and came up with some really interesting conclusions. First of all, if you look at this chart under mass total down at the bottom, it takes a mass of 51.7 to make one Vytinium fuel rod, which has a mass of 11. This explains why Vytinium had to have towers of containers in order to hold the materials necessary to make enough Vytinium fuel rods to give him the XP he was looking for. But even more disturbing is if you look at the last column, the price you get for one Vytinium fuel rod is 130. If you compare that with the price you would get for all the materials, you would see that you would get 44 more credits if you just sold the raw materials as opposed to selling the Vytinium fuel rod. This is almost all connected with the disparate pricing of the andesite wafer. Andesite itself is very heavy and very valuable. So it's not a great business decision to make Vytinium fuel rods. But I decided to go ahead anyway, and let's see what happens. So once I decided that I would try it, I went back and looked at the models of the other folks I've mentioned it before. Vytinium's system is designed to make Vytinium fuel rods on the workbench and generate XP. The processing is all done on other planets, and the intermediary goods are shipped in and stored in warehouses on his site. Kibble has a similar situation, much more complicated, again with the intermediary products made elsewhere and then shipped in. And the most beautiful, Matt Guyver, I mean, this is a gorgeous presentation, again, of a decentralized system. Well, I really don't like these systems because it's very hard to supervise when you have to go traipsing all over the universe to try and find out why a cargo link isn't working. I like my system, which is very simple. All the materials are brought in to one central location for fabrication. Here we are on Decaron 7B. Let's find a new nice spot here where we have helium and Vytinium in the same spot. This looks pretty good. Let's try this one out. So this spot looked like it might be good. I brought along my friend Drig0713. He's got a little program. It's called Mineral Survey Mode. And it has this really fantastic feature. Let me demonstrate it. So I go into my scanner and then fly up in the air, and it reprograms the scanner so that you can see what you have from above. There's helium, which is We definitely need that. Now, there's uranium. I don't need that. Iridium. Ah, there's the Vytinium. So it looks like right about here in between the two of them, as long as I'm not in the restricted area, should work pretty well. Thank you, man. I also have my friend LuxZg along from B.A.S.E building Advanced Space Encampments, and he's recommended that I do two things here. One, I build a dome, which is one of his programs, so let's see how we do that. He says it's in the miscellaneous category. There it is, the dome. And we'll use the default one. So the dome creates a dome over the entire outpost. And you can see we don't need spacesuits. It's a breathable atmosphere. This is fabulous. So the second thing that Lux wants me to do is to build the foundation. And that's pretty simple. Just put down the foundation, decide how high you want it, and then build as many sections as you want. I think that's going to be good enough for the factory that I'm thinking about. So let's go down and take a look at it. Oh yeah. This is great. This is perfect. Okay, well now the next step is I have to build extractors and cargo links and get the whole thing up and running. So we'll be back when I have it more in setup. Okay. This turned out to be a great spot for the factory here on Decaron 7B. You see LuxZg's dome is here, his foundations are here, and here's my good friend Remosito, who is going to explain how his system called Magnus the Magnate works. So Remosito, what's the first thing we should look at? He said, we'll go over to this blue kiosk here. I call this a seller, although it's actually a buyer from my point of view. And I've set these up so I can buy any finished goods or raw materials that you make. So let's set this one up. This is for finished goods. Let's go down to Vytinium fuel rods. You can see that up on the right hand side, it takes a bundle of 18, and I pay you a credit stick worth 30,000 credits retail. So each time you have a bundle of 18, you get a 30,000 credit stick. And you can see other finished products have different values depending on how complicated it is to make them. I said, okay, well, I see you have other of these around the outpost here. So let's go to the next step. Well, he said, let's go to the first step. So let's run over here. And by the way, people should notice the extent of fabricators that this factory is serious. So what happens is as the products come off the cargo links, they are funneled into this big stainless container here with courtesy of the Spice mod, and that includes the Vytinium extractors you see here. And they then connect to these fabricating devices here, which I call sorters. And they are sorting each of the raw materials into its own bin. Here's gold, andesite, plutonium, solvent, uranium, and Vytinium, and all the others are up on the other side. They are then linked to these fabricators, starting with the zero wire fabricators, which are on my left here. and then they in turn link to the compound fabricators. And let's go up. You can see here's the 0 wires connected to semi-metal wafer, nuclear fuel rods, more semi-metal wafer. Over here are 3 rows of andesite wafers, and finally 3 rows producing Vytinium fuel rods. Now, you'll notice that, and probably you did when we looked at it, that you have excess materials and excess finished products, intermediary products. Here you have a couple 100,000 0 wires that are not being used for production. So I'm starting a project with you and Supervisor Lin to take some of the 0 wire fabricators offline, linking them right up to a container and right to a seller. And you can see we've gained 1,328 credit sticks worth 3,000 credits just from your excess 0 wire production. We'll do the same thing for the nuclear fuel rods and semi-metal and andesite wafer, and you'll be able to get to sell some of that excess off. Of course, we always have the option of adding more fabricators. And I said, well, that is something to consider. He said, well, there's another feature of my program. Over here, we again have these blue fabricator-looking devices. This first group are skimmers. They're taking 10% of the input as it's coming in for products you've identified that you probably have more coming in than you're going to need. So it gives 10% off the top and turns those into credits. You see you have a large number of uranium credits here. And here is silver, also a large group. Gold, and so on. Over here, we have 4 fabricators for materials you think you really have an excess. I call these splitters. They take 50% of that incoming production and selling it right off here. Your solvent gets 3,000 cred sticks, 4,300 of those. Over here is plutonium, 4,000 of those. And then andesite. I said, wait a minute, andesite, I'm getting credit sticks that are worth 10,000 credits? He said, yes. I said, well, but I've noticed that before. I'm going to have to come back to that. So, okay, I get the idea, and I appreciate that you're generating so much in credit sticks for me here. But let's get back to Vytinium. So here's the container for Vytinium fuel rods. And I have 8,500 fuel rods produced. How do I sell them at that seller? He said, well, you have to create an output link. So we'll just make sure that goes right to that seller. And you can see it's starting to generate credits already. He said, why don't you go sleep for an hour and let's see what happens. Okay. That felt good, I guess. Let's see. 1,767 Vytinium fuel rods. You know, I did a little calculation in my head, and this 400,000 trade authority can only buy, I think it's 84 of these. So, again, we're going to have a serious problem. I can't keep running back and forth. Well, then Remosito said, you might be interested in talking to my friend SKK, who I brought along today. His company is SKKMods. So SKK, how can you help me with this problem of generating credit sticks from a number of different sources, and maybe I'm going to start to do this more around the universe. How can I collect them without having to go to every site and running to pick them up? And he said, well, I have created a program called Universal Stash. And I'm sure, as a Constellation member, you're familiar with the lodge and all the technical wonders of that they have memorialized there, including the universal storage container in the basement of the lodge. Well, what I have done is I have taken that universal storage container and found a way that you can export it, that you can bring it with you wherever you build one of these containers. So that is those are the exact materials that you have stored in the lodge. When you leave this site, they will go back to the lodge until you go to another site and you can pull them up again. These containers are not dynamic. You can't link them with storage containers or with fabricators. They only are accessible through your inventory and through direct connection. I said, okay, well, that's great, but how do I fix this problem of trying to get materials from my different sites all connected? He said, well, I've invented this. This is an outpost production collector. This one is dynamic. You can link anything you want, storage, excavators, fabricators, or Remosito's seller kiosks, to this outpost collector. And with a simple mechanical motion, which I can demonstrate to you, you can consolidate all of these production collectors into your universal stash. So I said, okay, so I can connect this. I have here at 1767. I can connect this one to your universal collector. And now the credits are here. So you said that I can simply transfer them. He said, yes, that's right. So, well, I don't want to do that because I have another idea of something I want to do, but this is fabulous. I want to ask Remosito something. So, Remosito, I can link my sellers that are connected to the skimmers to this outpost collection device. Do you think that that will work? He said, yeah, sure, try it. Okay, well, I'm going to stop for a second and I'm going to go and make that connection. Okay, well, I've linked everything together, so let's see what we have here. I see. We have all the credits from the different sellers around the outpost here. And you can see we have an enormous amount of credits. And so it's true that all of this can be linked together, and then you say that SKK with just a button push, I can consolidate that container into the university stash and I can take it anywhere I want. He said, that's absolutely correct. Also talking to Remosito about the tremendous value that the raw material indicite has. So I'm thinking that I could go to my site on Katydid 3 and link together my indicite production, part of it anyway, to a seller like this one, turn it into credits, and then all of those credits could be pulled back to wherever I want to be. Is that possible? He said, it is definitely possible. I said, okay, well, I'm off to Katydid 3. Well, we arrived on Katydid 3, and you can see that all my extractors are set up, extracting indicite. I have quite a collection of them, and we're under the dome. As you can see here, it's very pleasant because it's pretty hostile setup generally. And the extractors are all linked to our seller from Remosito. And so far, the seller has distributed 1,200 credit sticks, each worth 10,000 credits. Now, again, here's my universal stash. I've taken out the credits that I had in there. And if I just press the button here, I can consolidate those credits right into the universal stash, which I'll do. And there they are now at the top. Now, I didn't link the one back on Decaron, otherwise that would have happened at the same time. I just wanted to make sure that this system would work independent of anything else that may be going on. Well, we're back on Decaron. Hey, Heller, excuse me. So SKK, I just did an experiment with the Katydid 3. We linked our excavators to one of the storage container that was then linked to one of Remosito's sellers, and we were able to take the credits that we earned and transfer them into one of your universal collectors and then connect it to the universal stash, just like you said. Would it be possible to do this for a finished product? What I mean is, we would go to the planets, collect all the resources that are necessary, hook those resources up to a production collector, and then bring all of the resources from the various planets together in one location. Could be anywhere where we had access to the universal stash, pull those materials out and generate finished products right on the site. He said, absolutely, it can be done. No one has done it yet, but I'd love to see how it works. I said, okay, man, that is great. And I could use Vytinium fuel rods, but it looks like I have, done quite a bit with that already. So I'm thinking maybe barrel treated manifolds don't have so many steps. Let's do an experiment and see what that works, and we'll do that in my next video.